Hello, it's Trekker Joe, and welcome back to From the Depths. And this episode, I'm going to go and make the successor to the Artifice. I decided it's peacetime, there isn't any, conflict or anything. It's a perfect time to squeeze in a few revisions and new designs into my fleet. That way I can be fully prepared for the next conflict. So, here's the things that I want to say about the Artifice. The Artifice, it is a laser artillery with a single pulse laser system, and each time it hit, it would deal massive alpha damage to the blocks it hit, always knocking off 3 blocks per hit. But this does so little DPS overall because it's destroying 3 blocks every 2 seconds, which is easily repaired and is very negligible, only really making an impact in the resource reserves of vessels and vehicles that can't repair. It was only viable in the campaign because there were no repair bots, and I think that's an oversight. Of course, at the time it used to pierce, but right now it doesn't seem to exhibit that quality anymore. So, I'm going to be replacing the design with something a little better. I'm going to be trading the 3 cannons for a single multi-Q switch cannon, and I'm going to essentially have it capable of performing sustained fire at long range with very high scalpel-like precision. And it should be able to drill into a ship's carapace and core out things like AI and ammo reserves. We're going to go into our prototypes and grab the X2. So this is the X2, which, that just means it's a unnamed project. I'm just naming everything in X version something. The X1 was the Armstrong class, which was semi-successful, but still needs some work to really be amazing. And this is the X2, which is going to be the Artifice's successor. So, as I stated earlier, it was going to have a single cannon with scalpel-like precision, and its design specifications overall, though, are still fairly similar. It's going to be a lot flatter and a lot thicker overall. And the idea is, I sort of wanted to go back and then narrow into sort of a fishtail for the steering controls. And they can be located on the back, which are the least likely spot to actually get hit, as it will try to face its enemy. And I will give it extra logic to change its behavior up when I need to. I'm also thinking I am going to need some things. I'm going to need things like the Ravager shotguns, for example, mounted somewhere. It could be mounted somewhere here, and I could have it, for example, expand out before tapering back in, and that would provide space for the ammo as well, but I'm not sure yet. I could also try to actually work on the hull a bit, or work on concealing the systems more, as the AI box actually could use a cover and have the corners filled in, for example. Or I could go ahead and implement the shield system, and for that I believe I'd have to pull the nose forward at least by 1 or 3 blocks. I'm not sure yet. Depends on if I really feel the need to have an air gap in the front. I might. This shield system could defend against projectile attacks. If that's going to be coupled with a mechanism inspired by the Artifice's ability to dodge projectiles, so it should be nearly difficult to hit with APS. Then when a laser hits it, it should instantly switch 2 of those shields into a laser system. Essentially, it'll be the same system that the Armstrong has. I am going to have to remodel the front a little, but it's very early in development right now. It won't be hard for me to just create a prefab of all of this and move it all forward by as many blocks as I need. So I'll see you when I get at least one of these things done. I think since the shield system is going to require me to move things, I'm going to want to tackle that. Okay, I am back. Actually can't visualize the shields right now because of what I did. Give me a moment. So I had to disable a few things in the background there, but basically this is the shield system. It is similar to the Armstrong's shield system, where I have multiple layers of shielding backed by an external layer of shielding. So basically this is one layer of shielding which overlaps slightly. It is backed by 2 extra layers of shielding. These yellow shields can change to laser absorb when I receive a laser attack, and I even have all of the logic necessary to manage it efficiently. It's a little bulky, but that's because I had to include things like timers in with it as well. But this ACB cluster will allow me to easily handle any kind of laser attack without any real issue. Now I'm going to have to work on everything else. So I have no idea what direction I'm going to take this in. I did say I wanted to like extend it and make it taper in near the tail, but it also occurs to me that I need to have a lot of reverse thrust as well as forward thrust. And I had been thinking a little bit about how I was going to set up the thruster controls. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Okay, welcome back to the X2. I made some major changes, namely the shotguns and the infrastructure for the shotguns. The Artifice already had a system like this to defend itself against aircraft, and I decided if this design is going to be even remotely similar, it should have defensive shotguns. These will only attack enemies that get within 500 meters of the craft, and the craft itself is going to try to stay about 1500 meters away. This should mean that these will only be used sparingly to shoot down incoming aircraft in bursts. And I hope that they serve this design as well as they did the Artifice, which, let's be honest, it dealt a lot more damage by being attacked by aircraft than it ever did with its laser. It hadn't really occurred to me how important point defense in aircraft are. I have been thinking about my future design scheme of this. I could continue to taper this off. I don't know whether to do it slowly or tightly, but what I kind of want is to consider my options. So I could add extra ammo and give it a torpedo system that could kick in when the last enemy turns out to be a sub. That way I could have it still continue to be useful even after the laser is used up. I could possibly upgrade the AI slightly to have an extra routine card, and with that extra routine I could have the thing set it to a different mode and cause it to fly much closer to the target. That way I could have it go directly above and just drop torpedoes on it. If it's like a sub, it would make a decent sub hunter as well. But I should only have it do this if it has no other targets, which I will have to figure out the logic for that, but I already sort of have a few ideas. Another idea that I had is that I could possibly use a warp drive with this thing. So in addition to the normal dodging behavior, I could have it try to calculate the incoming time of impact from a missile, and then time its warp drive to jump out. Or I could just have it start the warp drive and jump out when missiles get to a certain distance. I have no clue, but I think it's kind of a useful idea, and I kind of want to figure out a way to make it efficient, because warp drives are very power hungry, and I will have to add extra engines just for those. So it's a tough decision. I think if I want to go for pure effectiveness though, I may just have to go with the missiles, but as I said, that's kind of boring, and I'm starting to realize this is going to become Solaris 2.0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do, and then I'll get back to you after I have some sort of headway into what I'm doing. Headway? Leeway? If I make any progress. I'll see you then. Okay, as you can see, I have done a lot off camera. This thing actually flies now. It's still a flying cross-section of a design, but for now I think it's okay for it to have its guts showing like this. As you can see, the armoring scheme hasn't been majorly changed. I decided to keep with some air gaps in areas where I could have it, and this shape flows really well. It has some reverse thrust, but this is obviously not permanent, so there's that. And I added a sensor ammo for the shotguns on the top because that's the least likely place that I'll get shot from. And of course the missile system's been implemented, and that fires torpedoes out. And I have a system that overrides the AI and gets it to turn, but I'm thinking I want to change it completely and just have it, simplify it. What I need is just really simple point at and shoot behavior. One thing I kind of want to do though is maybe I could go in here and remove strafe. I do want to check something real quick, and I'll check it with you though. So where would it be? Control. So let's see. So strafe command is... So I do need strafe. Let's see now. So if strafe command is left, what I'm thinking of doing is, instead of allowing it to use strafe normally, because it's still like a flat on and off, I want it to be able to override. And so what I want to do is take away the pusher preset from this, which this should also be a strafe engine, thinking about it. So taking it off strafe just disabled strafe for all the engines. Okay. And then what I can do is, now I technically have strafe, what I can do is I can put this strafe signal on a command and then have it filter through an ACB. And what that will allow me to do is be able to turn off the AI's control over strafing. And by doing that, I can get the side-to-side strafing that the artifice has without having to turn off the yaw. Okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to implement the actual dodging behavior. So wish me luck. Okay, this is just routine testing. As you can see, I had moved some of the ACBs in, and now I'm performing some tests. So if I set this to inverted, this should allow the AI to perform its regular strafing behaviors. But the idea is that if this E command is above 0, then I should allow it to do its own special strafing side to side, up, down kind of behavior. So here's what I'm kind of thinking. So in the AI, and I apologize for the loudness, I should have actually just saved the menu. I should have saved in a menu like this, that way I could just go and like that. So I happen to have Projectile Avoidance, which I should enable. And what this does is it's checking if we have any projectiles within 1500 meters, which is a range that it's supposed to engage at. Let me get that out of the way. So what it's doing is it's receiving that, and it is doing only the side strafe if the misc input is not above 0. I want to repeat this system at least a couple times, because this is obviously only going to perform the strafing if there are no projectiles threatening it, which there aren't any right now, so it's able to do its normal movement. And so what I did was I have the side strafe set, but these advanced controllers override it. I may have to remove the pusher preset though, and just make it a turner. But that's sort of the idea, is I'm going to have a manual method for controlling side strafe, and having yaw actually work with the AI, but be able to have that control be turned over to the mechanism I'm going to use to dodge around. As you can see, I mentioned earlier that the third drive is incrementing. That's the signal that I'm going to tap into to determine if I should be performing certain maneuvers. I'm going to try implementing this system, and then I'm going to show you how it works. So see you then. I had managed to do something here. It's pretty clever. It works pretty well. So what this does is I create a system that works just like the laser warning system. It was really hard for me to do this, and I tried recording multiple times thinking that I had a solution. Let's just spawn a water buffalo because they're surprisingly good targets. Very docile. And they fire at you as well, and it's predictable. But as you can see, what I did was I set up a system that when it starts, it enables these two ACBs. This ACB will enable those two ACBs. And this ACB will send a command to this ACB to turn both of these ACBs off. When I have something firing at me, what I do is I tell this system turns the ACBs on at a slight delay, while this one has no delay and it's disabling this ACB. And it alternates between the two. I have them synchronized. So they both are on a 0.2 delay, but this one has an effect delay of 0.1. That way it staggers. And what this does is when a target is in there, it is toggling this timer on and off. And ACB timers, when they're disabled, they stop counting down. So I took advantage of that by having these two ACBs pulse it on and off. And while this is also getting pulsed, this ACB is also getting disabled every other pulse. And that makes it so that this timer doesn't count down. So long as I have been shot at within the last 10 seconds, roughly, because there's still like that 0.1, 0.2 difference, the timer will continuously reset itself until it's no longer detecting that it's being shot at. And that means that it sticks. It's a lot more sticky. I'm really proud of myself for actually coming up with this, and now I just have to find a place for it. It turns out both of these mechanisms are about 5 blocks wide, which is about as much space as I need. The problem I'm going to get is with this system of ACBs. See, I'm going to have to find a space with 2 here, which I can find that. Then I need to find another space of 2. I need to find that, and I need to make sure this isn't slave condition. Yeah, it is. But I can probably reorganize this because I figured out a few of the tricks that I forgot about, such as I can just put a slave ACB in between 2 separate ACBs and they won't interact. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to optimize the space in there, and then I'm going to fit this mechanism inside. So I'm back. I have managed to cram every ACB into the system and made a few revisions because I noticed an error I made that caused the strafe controls not to work properly. They work properly now, and it is actually actively dodging out of the way, and I'm quite proud of this. As you can see, where it's firing is not even remotely where it is. And it stays out of the way, although it does sort of dodge back into projectiles again. So I'm not sure yet. But it does throw them off, and whatever prediction they use doesn't work properly with it. So you might notice the secondary drive is a positive and negative number intermittently. And that is because I decided to use the second drive as the actual dodging mechanism, because otherwise it no longer takes priority. So it just uses the second drive instead, and the thrusters listen in on those, and that causes it to dodge back and forth. So I'm quite satisfied. I will show you what it looks like if I can grab onto the ship itself. It's a little loud. But yeah, as you can see, the AI core is crammed. There's only one space that isn't taken up by an ACB. So I quite literally used every single space except for maybe like a couple of the corners and that space. So this AI is basically finished. There isn't anything left to add. All the control systems are packed neatly in a tight space. So yeah, it's like a much more modern version of the Artifice. I understand why people like the Mimic blocks now. Okay, welcome back. I have redesigned this armor scheme. Don't mind the battle damage, I just had to test it, find its weak points. But yeah, it's fully covered, all the parts are there. I found my favorite use for a Mimic being these corners. They're actually so perfect for this because I can get shapes that don't exist, but I can't really think of much else to do with it outside of these corners, so it'll take me a bit, but I'll probably come up with other uses for it as well. So yeah, I no longer hate Mimics. Celebrate. Or not. I don't really care. This armor scheme is at least 2 layers of metal thick in most places, and is able to withstand pretty much anything, especially from the front. This shield has managed to take so many hits, even after I had taken a significant amount of damage. This shield still held together, and even when like parts of it were flaking off. I'm excited to say that this is actually a really well defended front. Of course, it's almost all frontal defense. There are no actual like countermeasures that cover the sides or the back. It doesn't have like a full shielding system because it's designed to face an enemy. And I find my effective air designs are the ones that sit back and play support, and this is definitely a support craft. Now, I will say there is one major flaw with it, and one that I intend to fix by backing apart with heavy armor. Let me just hit that 4 times, Shift P, and that gets me into this view. And you can see the problem right here. Any like experienced player, I mean, you can even see there's some leftover damage from when this happened. I have no heavy armor backing or anything to prevent these clips exploding and destroying these laser nodes. And like essentially what would happen is if a craft was able to detonate this, which is not hard by the way because of how it's designed, it would then take out one of the laser nodes with it, which could drop your firepower down to like 75% of what it was. So I am going to fix that, and I'm going to put a layer of paint on it and come up with a name for it. So wish me luck with that, because I really don't know what to name it still. Okay, I am back, and I have managed to finish this. Internally, I made a few changes. I had done a fight between this and 2 artifices, and let's just say that I wound up waiting to see whose vehicle's fuel would run out first. So I had buffed the laser system dramatically, and then I had added a pair of backup generators because I realized that I needed to be able to charge batteries in order to protect myself against lasers. I tested it against the Scorpion a few times, and usually comes out on top, but not always. It has the ability to negate the lasers for a reasonable amount of time, but it also doesn't necessarily have enough of a backline to stop it forever. So it'll last maybe a few seconds under fire before the shields give. Essentially what I did is I added 2 backup engines, and those are responsible for charging the batteries. They're almost solely responsible. And then I have, if I put my UI back up, I have a bunch of ACVs that can tell those engines when to turn on and off. But I'm not sure if it's actually working properly, so I may have to tune this between episodes. Because for some reason, even though it's set to battery charge when they're turned on, they don't actually seem to want to charge the batteries. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Comments section. Do batteries have a charge rate assigned to them? Because I did not see anything like this in the menus. It doesn't seem to indicate anything, but if they do, it would be helpful to know what the charge rate is. That way it's not as much of a hassle, because I'll be able to build around it. Okay, anyway, I was making an error with the laser nodes earlier, and that's why it wound up waiting till one vessel ran out of fuel. So I moved the frequency doublers onto in line with the cavities, and it seems to have fixed it. Although overall I have much less AP, but it's not like I have 0 energy shots with 90 something AP. These are actually charged shots that provide AP, and I'm happy. Now that I do have a prototype and I'm just calling it, it's like, this is it. I'm not going to do anymore. I'm going to have it fight 2 artifices, because I had to get it to earn its name last time, and that previous fight, it earned this name. It's kind of keeping with the tradition that I had named the Artifice with, which I'm sure you can see the theme that I was going for with these. I'm going to do a fight between this and the Artifices, and this thing won't be dissolving in that fight. No, the Artifices are going to be dissolving. It's actually really, really strong. Okay, so I have a pair of Artifices, and I have the Construct. And we are going to do a fight to see which one is the better. So let's just do this. So I'm going to do it from this perspective, closer to the Artifices, because that way you can get a close-up of all of the damage that it's dealing. Artifices might occasionally pop 3 blocks off. This thing just cars off the hull. Anything that is lightly armored, or even heavily armored, as you can see here, that's literal heavy armor, it can just cut through. It doesn't have to do much to be able to, like, compared to like what the Artifice could do, it definitely didn't have to do all that much for it to be effective. But with this, at least, I have a major advantage. So the Artifices actually have a major disadvantage in that they have the old setup that I had, where I tried to have the frequency doublers in their own chambers. So I fixed that, and the result is overwhelming firepower. And for a laser especially, this isn't that bad. Of course, every time it's being shot, it is actually... like, every time they shoot it from the front, the shields absorb all the damage, and the backup generators kick in and charge it up. And of course, the main engines have a small amount of power, but... oh. Sorry to interrupt my thought here, but we already downed an enemy. Look at that. That's really... that did so much. So now we're going to switch targets. Maybe. No, it's still targeting this one because it's actually closer. Also, I believe that this thing... well, this stays within a range, within 1,000 to 2,000, I think. This thing, however, stays around 1,500. And wow. So this is still attacking it, even though it's underwater. And I guess now it's sort of limited damage-wise. It still does damage, but it's not as noticeable. But this is the main target, so it's going to focus on it. Anyway. In shallow water, the laser barely loses anything. So we'll just assume that thing's defeated. And move on to this target, which it is skewering. It did have time to rebuild a little, but there's still a gaping hole. The amount of damage it's dealing is actually impressive. It's like, I can't believe I managed to make something with a laser that is strong. So I think I figured that out. Of course, when I figured out what was wrong with this laser, I did actually go and update the Armstrong too, so now it has a laser that is capable of taking on aircraft. It is not even a quarter as strong, but it is decent. It's not even an eighth as strong, but it does actually deal damage and knock blocks off. I'm pretty certain, but it's slightly hard to tell. Anyway, it appears we... oh my god. Look at all that damage. I'm sorry. I have to get a screenshot because that's going to be the thumbnail. We just cored this so much. We just cored it out. I mean, the artifice is missing most of its control electronics even. I don't know what is keeping it going though, because I'm pretty certain... oh, that's because the AI is actually in the very back. But look at that. AI dead. Oh my god. So... it did this. That is... so... dramatic. So you can kind of tell I am quite satisfied with this design, and it's going to serve me very well in the campaign. Anyway, I'm going to see you in the next video. Until then, I guess.